Hey, Delphina here to tell you about another fun upcoming hashtag Meet the Webcomic. We'll be starting it up on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram on August 15th as a fun, shareable way to tell the world all about your comic, what it's about, and who it's for in one neat post. Give Screen Tones Cast a follow on your social media of choice for more news. Keep an eye out for the Meet the Webcomic hashtag and join us in celebrating everyone's comics on August 15th. Thanks, and enjoy the episode.
Do it! Just do it! Don't let your dreams be dreams. Yesterday said tomorrow. So just do it! Make your dreams untrue!
Hello, and welcome to Screen Tones, where we talk anything and everything webcomics. Today we're going to continue talking about conventions, specifically questions asked from our listeners about them. It'll be a little different from our usual episodes in that this one we hope to capture the energy and experience that comes from both attending and vending at conventions. I'm Crispy, my pronouns are she, they, and my comic is Ghost Junk Sickness.
I'm Delphina, my pronouns are she, her, and I make the comic Somnolus.
My name's Ray, my pronouns are they, them, and I make the comics Overlord of Ravenfell and On Empyrean High.
I'm Verathane, my pronouns are she, they, and I make the comics Chiralt and Witchwood.
Absolutely beautiful. So let's kind of get into this and get started. I'm going to go right into one of the most kind of basic questions for that is, what is the most actual basic setup for conventions that, suggestions that you have just to kind of bring for newbies who are just kind of starting out?
We're going to have a little blog post about this, and we also had an episode about it a little while ago, so go ahead and take a look at that. But basically, displays, backdrops, price signage, tablecloths, ways to take money. I mean, that's about it.
Yeah, some pretty basic stuff. We've covered a lot of it, like Delphi said, in the previous episode, so definitely make sure to check that out. And from here, we're kind of going to get into the nick of things. So what do you prepare if you're on your own and didn't bring someone to go get stuff for you? Like, you don't have that kind of access to having a table mate, you're lone wolf in it. What do you do from there?
Well, for me, I always go with my partner, San, because one, she's kind of invested in everything that I do for my comics, but also just because I find it easier to have someone that can leave the table and, or let me leave the table and still have it attended, still be able to take sales, and pretty much everything like that is really nice to have a partner. But I will say that they should probably be at least semi-invested in your work, because I've had some table partners that just did nothing.
Yeah, and there's moments like that where you can have people who aren't invested in your work almost lose a sale in that, because they'll just be like, oh, I have to watch the table, and they'll just sit on their phone, and it doesn't look as inviting as if, you were someone who was invested in the work. Definitely.
Oh, definitely.
Some conventions will have volunteers who the idea is that people who are tabling can request that one of the volunteers will fill in if they need to take a bathroom trip or something like that. And I think I made use of that a couple of times during a TCAF in years past. But I mean, it's kind of the same thing. Like, the volunteer is unlikely to kind of know all of your pitches and your taglines and to be super invested. So I just kind of assumed whenever I left and did that I was going to come back and be like, okay, nothing has sold, but it's fine. Here's your table again.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good point.
Yeah, I think Part of the power of introducing yourself to your neighbors and stuff is that you do get to know them after sitting next to them like for a 12-hour day or something. I remember Emerald City Comic Con that I had a half table at, and I was next to an amazing artist. She'd done some work on the Buffy the Vampire Slayer comic series, and she had some of her original prints and stuff there, and we were both alone on our own, but she was cool and we talked a lot. And when she went away from the table, she stepped away to get something done. Somebody came by and wanted to buy one of her original prints, and these are like $100 things, like $200 or something like that. And I'm like,
Wow.
oh my gosh, oh my gosh, okay, I like, have on, I'm gonna leave a note for Megan. um she's gonna come back, I promise. Just give me your phone number, and I'll have her text you when she gets back to the table, and you can come back and you could get the print from her. But I've also just like sold stuff for people. I'll just ask them, is it okay? And I'll try to be really honest about it. That gauge your interest, but sometimes it is a lot of fun to just kind of get to know somebody else through their work and over the weekend.
I did memorize your comics tagline when we tabled together at Emerald City Comic Con, which was
Aw.
fun.
Oh, that's so cute.
I'm always lone wolfing it. I love being. I just like it because it helps me focus on the attendees instead of whoever's sitting next to me. Like, I love my friends. I love sitting next to them. I love sharing tables sometimes, especially when I'm going internationally and stuff, because a lot of
Mm.
times I need somebody to help host me and get me from place to place. So that's always fun. But a lot of times I feel like I'm socially obligated to talk to them, and that's not what you want at a convention. You want to be able to talk to anybody that approaches you. So I actually kind of prefer it when I can go alone and just have that space.
Oh, I like that. I like that. How do you feel about that, Thane?
I've got kind of, I mean, I could see benefits of going in both directions with it. I always used to try to, if not table with someone else, to always make sure that I have like a friend who is going to be present at the convention. Usually, especially if I'm traveling, I want to be going somewhere that I know people at. And so if there's like a moment at the con when I really need to go to the bathroom or something like that, I can like get somebody in to like mind things while I'm away.
Mm-hmm.
And if I want food, it's nice having someone around who can like bring coffee or something like that. I had my first experience of like truly being all alone at a con just earlier this year at Toronto Comic Con, because I mean we're still kind of in the very opening up stages, and a lot of folks are still not comfortable going back to conventions and stuff. I was kind of on the fence about returning myself, and so I ended up kind of at a show where basically nobody that I knew was present. So I had to go get my own coffee, and I had to carry all my own things, and I had to find a way to like get all my stuff from my house to the convention without the benefit of like having somebody else to drop me off at the doors and stuff like that. And it definitely added a few little layers of challenge. So I was just trying to find ways to make all of my packing as portable and kind of easy to manage as possible, and like plan out like, okay, here's where I'm going to go to like get food, bringing all the food that I could, and making sure I had all my like scissors and like little things that I might need.
Portability is so important, especially if you're like traveling by air, because there is a 50-pound weight restriction on your luggage if you don't want to pay oversized pricing. So like that too, like just kind of keep an eye on how heavy things are. How much can you manage on your own if you're doing it all alone?
Oh yeah, I totally remember. Well, it's happened so long ago. I was going to TCAF a couple of years ago with Space, and again, to your point, Delphi and Thane, with portability, we had brought all of our books on this little cart, and we were taking the train. So we get to the train, have all our books on this cart, and I'm just like, okay, just let me and my sister like carry this up, like don't touch it. And of course, the attendants go right in, they swoop in, they're like, no, we're gonna pick it up. They grab the books and they drop them almost on the track. And I'm just like,
Oh
oh my
no!
God.
Ah!
Ah! So definitely taking that extra time to make sure everything is absolutely secure as possible. Because in that moment, I was like, I know where all the safe spots are to pick it up. They didn't. And that could have been a super oopsie with that.
I did want to also say for when you're on your own, one of the first things that I do when I show up at a table, whether or not I have somebody with me, is I'll introduce myself to the people tabling on either side of me, because that could just also be great. Like if you've got to run somewhere, you could just be like, "Can you just keep an eye on my table
Yes.
while I like nip off to the bathroom or something?" And then also you might make new friends, which is super cool.
Yeah, that is a really good point. I really like that. Continuing on, I did want to ask about accessibility in cons. So, just accessibility for people who have wheelchairs and whatnot. Like, what are our feelings on that kind of going with there?
Oh gosh, it's tricky. I don't have personal experience being in a wheelchair. This is something I would definitely want to open up to anybody who has that experience. But I like to have a lot of things on the table and things to that are pick upable. I know a lot of people will stick their stickers or their charms or whatever to a board, and or maybe those cube things, the little walls of cubes, and or put up a big garage sale type. It's not a garage sale. It's like the wall of prints sort of style where you put them all behind you, and that can be really hard to see for a lot of people.
One thing I do want to mention, for if you're ever going to be like leaving your table in someone else's hands and saying it's okay for you to sell things on my behalf, like try to make sure that all of your signage for pricing and stuff is like super duper
Yes.
clear and very easy for that person to understand, because you don't want them to be like trying to help a customer and the customer's like, how much is this thing? And they're like, I actually don't
Oh
know.
no.
Son has sent me several texts going, "How much is this?" So that was definitely a learning process for me.
Maybe like a list behind the table, like as well as individual like
Yes.
price tags on each item kind of thing.
Yeah, I like to keep a clipboard of all like the merchandise and items that we have for sale at the convention, to also know like the stock that we have as well as how much prints do. And then, all with the prices and stuff so I don't get tripped, because a lot of the times like the prices will be obviously at the front of your booth. Some people tape it to the backside so that they can see what's going on, which is cool. But we also have it, accessible on a little piece of paper on a clipboard, so that I'm not just like constantly like arching over and being like, what did I price that at?
Keeping records is so important. Like just any way you can do it. I know some people do that, or just like I write down every single sale, and it just, yeah, it helps. It really helps.
Yeah, it again, it really helps to know what sells, what moves, so that your future cons, you can kind of be on top of that and whatnot. But moving from that, we're at our table, we're kind of there. We notice that some panels are kind of going on, some cool hangouts. Maybe there's an artist you really want to see. Like, how do you deal with being tied to your table the whole time and being a seller with that stuff?
The FOMO is definitely real. I love all the other things that happen at conventions. I do also enjoy a lot of the stuff that cons will put on for attendees, like workshops and panels and things. And I too want to look around the artist alley and see what other people have like for sale, and find some cool fan art of that niche show that I'm into and all those things. But like there's also this awareness when you're tabling a convention, like, okay, you've put so much like of your resources and time into like just showing up to be here, and there's a limited number of hours, and every minute that you spend away from your table could be a sale that you're losing. So it's I mean, there kind of is no answer that's going to really cover both of these things, unless you do have, like, if you're sharing a table and you have a friend on hand who is totally like into your stuff and will help sell it for you, that takes a huge load
Hmm.
off of the mind. which is why I kind of enjoy tabling, at least with a friend present. Like it's super great if I can have like a buddy of mine have the neighboring table. If not, then I just kind of have to like really think about it and decide like, okay, do I want to step away for an hour and a half in the middle of a busy Saturday, or do I want to stay at my table? And like it'll be a little different every time, just depending on the situation.
Oh yeah.
One thing I will say is some conventions will give you two badges for a table. So, a good way to convince one of your friends to, pretty much be back up to watch your table is go, hey, I can get you in this con for free. So, that's definitely something to consider. Although not all cons do that, you might want to look into that if you're thinking you need a friend pretty much there to help you.
Oh
It
yeah.
it seems to be much more common at like the big fan conventions, like Fan Expo does it, and I think like Emerald City did it, like a bunch of the other big shows. Basically for every 6-foot table you'll receive two badges. It's kind of the default in that sphere. So if you get a half table, like a 3-foot, you might just get the one, but if you're getting a full table you'll usually get two. It's less common at like the smaller indie shows. Like I don't think TCAF does it as a
Mm-mm.
standard.
No, it doesn't.
It seems to be pretty common for anime conventions, though, as I said, it does vary a lot depending.
Yeah. So definitely look into that and kind of check out what's going on with that and whatnot. I did want to ask though, we're kind of talking about being on, the vendor side. I do want to know the differences between both sides. So attending and actually doing the selling. Like, what's the differences between them going to conventions?
Oh gosh, I used to spend so much money at conventions. I don't even know how I did it. But I loved going. I went to like maybe one convention a year, one big convention a year. It was either Anime Expo or San Diego Comic Con, and it was fun. I got to do a lot of things. It was very exhausting because you're on your feet all day and you're walking around. So that's one thing that I really enjoy about the transition between like being a convention attendee and being a convention tabler is that I get to sit anytime I
Yes.
want to, and that's really nice. I also like the fact that I'm making money instead of losing it all day because there's so many cool things in the dealer's hall that I want. But yeah, what we were saying before, just like you don't always get to go to the panels and stuff unless they're later at night. Sometimes I do my shopping like the 10 minutes before the floor opens
Oh
and
my
everybody's
goodness.
mostly there, but maybe not quite there. And then, you know, or maybe if it's a slow convention, I actually love slow conventions now because it actually gives me the time to go around and look at people's stuff. And a lot of times, if you're in a local area, if you're tabling locally, you'll be seeing the same people over and over again. But at the busy big shows, you'll never get to go to their stuff. So that's why I always like to put in a few shows a year that are just like, in a high school gym
Mhm.
somewhere. They're not going to be very busy. You're going to have plenty of downtime because then you get to really go around and explore and you don't have to worry about losing sales so much.
Yeah, having like those kind of like wind down cons to go to and whatnot, just to ease the people battery shortage there, because it takes a lot. There's a lot of effort and energy going to attending and tabling at conventions for
It
sure.
does, yeah. But the other thing though is that when you're an attendee, you can leave. When you're tired, you can go back to the hotel room.
Yes.
But if you're not an attendee and you're sitting behind the table, you better hope you have some energy drinks or coffee or I'd keep a bag of snacks or something back there so I don't start attacking people. But you're there and you got to be there all 4 days, every hour of every day. And yeah. That's what you do.
Yep.
My favorite thing about the exhibiting experience that not every con has, unfortunately, but some conventions will have green rooms that the exhibitors have access to, and it's just like a quiet back room where they often will have like free coffee and snacks. And anybody with an exhibitor badge can like just walk into it at any time and like just kind of chill.
Yeah,
Uh, I love it. Every con should have them.
it's definitely saved my bacon before. It's just, sometimes tabling at conventions, you'll have just that kind of buzz in your ear from just hearing people talk and talk and talk. It's that constant chatter. And so when you go into one of these like quiet rooms, you're just like, oh, the sound of silence is nice. And it helps you refocus and get back to, selling or enjoying the convention.
My favorite sound is the sound of the free coffee.
What does that sound like?
Sounds like coffee being poured into a cup.
Oh.
Yep, that's coffee. Oh, so to kind of continue about what other things that cons offer, I did want to ask about like accessibility in them and kind of what to look out for when needing such a thing. Delphi, did you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah, I don't have personal experience for a lot of stuff, so I would really love to hear more from people who do have accessibility issues. But I know that every convention I apply for, they always make it very clear that you should reach out. A lot of times if you're a vendor who needs extra space for a chair or something like that, the convention staff will be happy to work with you or put you in a place that's easier to access because sometimes you get trapped in those little uh, lines of tables where you can't really get in and out very often. So yeah, just figure out what they can do for you, work with the volunteers, work with the convention staff on that if you're the one behind the table. Now, if you're trying to optimize for people coming by who might have disabilities, I always try to keep things at a pick upable level. I want them to be on the table. Sometimes they're on boards. I've got buttons in boxes and things like that. Anything that if somebody wants to see a thing, I can hand it over to them and they can turn it over in their hands and they can get it as close as they need to if they have vision problems or whatever. I know a lot of people kind of go for the wall of prints in the background and or maybe some overhead displays or very tall displays where it's not going to be very visible if you're not like 6 feet tall or whatever, and that's always kind of a missed opportunity. So you really it's really good to think about that.
I feel like the best use for that like overhead space is specifically just for very big graphics to use as eye catches to bring people in from across the hall. And it's not a good place to put like actual merch that you're selling people. Like have that space for like a banner or like a really big version of a print and then have the smaller copy of the print like closer to eye level or like propped up on the table or in a binder or something.
Yeah, and just speaking from like a safety point too, you will get people who will, regardless of your intent and how you set it up, grab merchandise that's not supposed to be grabbed. And sometimes when you have those kind of like really, really tall setups or something that goes like across the table, almost like an arch, people will grab them and your cube display might fall over, and that can get a little hairy. So, definitely keeping that in mind.
I actually zip tied my cube display when I had it.
that is a good that is a good preventative measure to take those extra steps to make sure that that people will be very handsy with this stuff. So
I've actually seen people like have a display tip over, and that's
Mhm.
not fun. But also, especially since I had like charms on like a pin board on my display thing, people a lot of people would really like to grab those, and that was scary with the zip ties. I can't imagine without.
Yeah. it's tricky kind of finding that balance, and it definitely depends on the type of merch you have. Like, you don't want people walking away with it, and a lot of times I have kids who come by the booth and they're picking up the buttons with the googly eyes on them and playing with them, or maybe they don't quite understand what's for taking and what's for
Mm-hmm.
paying money for. But it's always been worth it to me. I haven't had too much of a problem with theft or anything like that. And for the accessibility issue, I think it's worth it.
Yes, I totally agree. 100%. And honestly, I find that like a nice little pin basket is a good little eye candy for bringing some people in because they do like going through it and being like, hoo, what's inside? So, yeah, definitely keep that in mind when building your table. And to kind of go off on that as well, I did want to ask, since we're in this general kind of vicinity, what kind of conventions are really, really good for newbies to attend? Like, just kind of starting off. Like, where should they go from there?
I think the best, I mean, as we kind of mentioned in part one of the Conventus episode, is going to be something that is close to you that you don't need to like get on an airplane to fly for.
Mm.
And hopefully something that is reasonably cheap so that you're not like at your very first convention experience with the weight of like, I paid $700 to be here, I need to make that money back,
Oh,
like weighing over
no.
your head, because that would be very intimidating and be a huge buzzkill over the whole experience if you're still figuring things out, like you've never done this before. This is the time to, like, it is going to be, you're kind of taking a risk when you go to your first convention, but maybe don't make it a risk that's going to be so stressful that you can't enjoy the experience.
I'm
I
I'm very stressed out about that $700 comment, and I've been doing conventions for like 7 years.
Yeah. I mean, it's a commitment too, right? And you definitely got to know if you can do the convention first before jumping in. And, even then, it's still, that's what we're working for.
I would second with the local thing, and if you can, try for a college convention because they're usually really cheap and it's usually a good first experience. The main problem is maybe they might not have any money, but it'll at least get you to know what shows interest and just getting the convention experience. I would also recommend looking for one-day conventions
Mm-hmm.
because I have found that a lot of one-day conventions actually do pretty well. It's like there was this one that I did that was just like all my Saturday, Sunday sales packed into one because everyone was like, oh no, it's only one day. I gotta spend my money today.
Yes.
Where like multiple day conventions are often like, oh yeah, I'm going to come back on Sunday. And then they've spent all their money by then.
Whoops. God, every convention, there's always like the first day, people will be like, oh, I'm just looking right now. I'll come back for the purchasing later, which I understand. It's a good idea as an attendee. But um, so related to the question, the way that I chose basically all the first conventions that I went to for the first, like, gosh, I don't know, 5 years that I was going to cons, it was exclusively whether I knew somebody else who was going, like a really good friend, like a
Oh.
travel buddy, like a personal friend. The first convention that I ever tabled at was because my university's anime club was going there already. Like there was, so they had planned the van. They actually had school funds to pay for the hotel rooms and stuff like that. So literally all that I had to pay for was my table, which was super cheap. And it was like, well, I'm already going to go there and I'm going to be going there with a group of like, 12 other people who are all huge nerds, and they'll be helping out like if I need something, and they'll be around to say hi if I'm lonely or something. And then I actually did not take my own advice for the second convention. I flew to California to see a friend because she really wanted to go to a convention that like I kind of took it as an excuse to go on the trip. And then it just so happened that there was a convention happening there at the time that we were like, okay, this should be fun. And that was kind of the mindset that I had in mind, is like, I don't really care if I don't make back the money, because the point is that I'm on this trip to see my friend and hang out. And that definitely kind of helped the vibes, I suppose. I had a lot of fun.
What convention was it in California?
It was Fanime.
Oh, yeah. I can't get into that. Keep applying. I can't get in.
This was a while ago.
Yeah, if you can save money somehow, that's always a good thing. I actually went to OhioCon a lot because my anime club for my college actually would go there every year so I could get a hotel for free.
Oh.
Yeah, with that California trip, because my friend was local, I just stayed at her house and I didn't have to worry about how am I gonna hotel and getting to and from the show. It was just like, okay, we're just gonna be together. It'll be nice.
So it seems like cost is a really big factor. I mean, it is. I mean, you're selling stuff, right? And you don't want to not make your money back. So that's definitely a stressor you want to avoid. Going to something local, going to something that you can save on costs of, nights to stay over and stuff like that. Definitely keep that into consideration for sure. So moving on, kind of talked about conventions, the kind of basics of it a little bit, and our opinions on that. I want to get into the details of it. And one of the weird things that I have a problem with, specifically when I go to conventions, is pricing my merchandise. And I'm going to kind of poke Delphi about that because I've seen your setups. They're absolutely impressive. I am taking notes all the time from what I see from you, and I'd like to hear more.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I have a lot of fun with my setups. I love planning, both like the display aspect, but also the psychology of pricing your stuff. Because if you've got books, if you've got multiple books, it's always a fun idea to do like you can buy a single book for $20, but you can buy both books for $30 because all of a sudden you've got like this combo deal going on and they're like, wow, this is such a great deal. And so they'll buy the two books instead. And I try to do combos with like everything.
Mm-hmm.
I have button combos, sticker combos, any kind of thing where if you buy two or three, it's a little bit cheaper and that moves stuff so fast. So look into doing that. The general stuff applies. Obviously, don't like price things lower than you paid to make them. um, especially if you're starting out too. Just don't try to spend a lot of money on stuff. If you can
Mm-hmm.
kickstart things beforehand, that'll that's what I did with my first Somnambulist books. I ran a Kickstarter and it got a run of 500 books, and so then I had leftovers for conventions, and that's a really way for books specifically because they can be very expensive if you're trying to do print on demand. Um, but prints are very easy to get done, and you can charge quite a bit for them depending on your illustration style. Yeah, just also just kind of take a cruise around your local conventions, see what people are selling things for. You'll get a metric of how much you can get away with charging people for things. Also, just like perceived value is something I really believe in. Like
Yes.
you're gonna have like a little button and you might have like a larger button. And even if they cost the same amount of money for you to make the small button versus the large button, people's brains will say big button more expensive, small button less expensive. Same with prints. Same with like all kinds of stuff, stickers. So I make like small stickers that are not shiny, and then I'll make big stickers that are shiny, and it's very clear to people. Oh, okay, I understand why this costs more than that.
Mm-hmm.
So just try to think about things like that, and kind of maybe also if things aren't selling the way you think they should, try changing the price the next day
Yes.
or the next convention. And you'll find it over time. You'll find the right price points for you.
Yep, that's totally something, a tactic that we've totally done is change prices when things are not moving the way that we intended. Also, kind of changing the display a little bit. Maybe the next day you're going to put something that's not going as well, a little bit more up to the front, can keep in mind. So now we have people coming to our table for are really awesome stickers. And they kind of want to see a little bit more and leave with an impression. I would say having business cards is a really, really good idea for someone to kind of look at your social and stuff like that. Would you like to expand upon that though, Ray?
Always have business cards. I have actually forgotten business cards occasionally and have handwritten and did a little doodle for people when I forgot it. Um, One thing that I like to do is with every purchase, I'll put a business card, and I usually have a freebie like a bookmark or something that has my webcomic URL on it as well, because some people do like useful things like bookmarks, or they like postcards more than, the business cards.
Mm-hmm.
But usually you always want at least something with your information on it, especially if you are there to promote your webcomic, because you want people to check it out.
Yep.
Even if you don't sell a book, they can at least read it online, and that could be a future sale or at least a future fan.
Yep, totally. And I've been definitely the goober that has run out of business cards, just like Ray. Another thing that I like to do is to make a little sign that they can take a picture of, so that they can check out the store, come back later, and stuff like that. When you run out of stock, it's definitely happened to me. It's it's quite unfortunate when that happens.
I brought like 2 massive boxes of business cards to the Comic-Con that I went to earlier in March, and like they were both gone. I completely forgot how fast
Yeah.
these things can vanish off of a convention table. So at the next show that I go to, I'm definitely planning on doing the thing where instead of just having all of them out front on the table, I'm going to have like, the front and back on a little sign that people can take photos of. Uh, Although I do plan on making like sort of slightly bigger than business card sized, halfway between a business card and a postcard, specifically for the comic, that I won't like feel weird if I run out partway through the convention. I'll be like, sweet, they're all gone. Whereas the business cards, I'm like, I'm supposed to give these for like specific reasons.
Oh yeah, as I said, I would usually do bookmarks, which is ironic when I have a webcomic that doesn't have a print version, um but a lot of people really enjoyed them because they were useful, and I know some people actually collect them too,
Hmm.
so they'll just like take them and keep them, which is something that business cards often don't happen with. And I just think it's really useful to just have something free for them to take that has your info on it.
Um, that's actually one of my secret sales tips too, with bookmarks specifically because they sound special, but they don't cost as much as you think they do. They're about the same price as business cards, maybe a little bit more. But if you're having a slow convention or people aren't stopping or whatever, you start asking people, "Hey, would you like a free bookmark?"
Hmm.
And like they have to come close enough to take the bookmark if they want the free bookmark, and then they're close enough to see your table, and you can just say, "Hey, yeah, this is from my webcomic Somnolus. I've got the first 2 volumes printed here. Take a look." And sometimes it works.
Yep. Yep, hook, line, and sinker. Totally does. People like free stuff. Gosh, they love free stuff.
Free stuff.
Thinking more about like other things that you do at your table when people kind of come in to get stuff. Some people do commissions at the table as well. Can you tell me a little bit more about that, Thane? Like, how do you go about doing that?
For me specifically, I take commissions at conventions only in a very specific and very limited kind of sense. What I do is I'll bring a little pad of postcard sized watercolor paper with me. And I've got a selection of pens that are all waterproof, and I have a tiny little watercolor kit, like one of those pocket sized kits that just fits in a purse or whatever, and one of those water brush pens that I can load it with water, and then all I have to do is squeeze it to have the water come out through the bristles. And I can use that with the tiny watercolor kit. It's very portable. so I can sit behind the table and I can do these very quick like watercolor drawings. And because they're in full color and they've got like inks and stuff, they're like, I'm quite proud of how most of them have come out.
Oh.
And I mean, people seem to like them, and I don't charge a lot for them because part of the goal is that I can finish them usually on the same day at the convention. If I get a ton of them, then obviously I'll have to start pushing them to the next day. And there'll usually come a point on like Sunday where I'll kind of cut it off and be like, okay, if I take any more now, I'm not going to be able to finish them like within
Yeah.
this convention. And I do not want to be on the hook for like commissions after the con ends. Like, I'm not doing these for homework. I'm doing these to like, have fun at the convention and have something to occupy my hands while I'm behind the table. And each one that I finish will kind of function as an advertisement to other people walking by that like, oh, hey, I'm doing these commissions. So I tend to have a lot of fun with them, but like I put like kind of rules for myself, like just to not be too precious with it. Like each one, I'll only spend maybe an hour or so working on each one of them. So I can usually tell somebody who's come by and asked for one, like, okay, come back at the end of the day or something, and I'll have this done. And I'll take their contact information, like usually a name and a phone number and email, so that if they don't show up within like kind of the time frame that I told them, I can poke them. And because I do them pretty fast, I don't really have to worry about them coming back repeatedly to check on it or anything like that. And I get them to pay up front just because it is a problem sometimes where people will do these things and then never show up again. So yeah, that's those are my rules for myself. I also I regret it whenever I don't do this now because I've slipped a few times and forgotten, but I always try to take a photo of the commission that I've
Yes.
just done as soon as I finish it, basically before the customer takes it away again. Because the other nice thing about doing commissions at the con is that you can post them on social media with your booth number and the con that you're at, and then anybody who's looking up the con will see this artist is doing commissions and they're at this booth number, and they can go and find you.
Okay, so we're kind of in the thick of it now. We're selling our stuff, we're having a great time, but we're also interacting a lot with the people and the crowds that kind of come in. So I do want to ask, this is a little bit on the nose, but how do you deal with people who are a little spicy on Maine? Maybe they're, just a little bit pushy or something like that, even booth barnacle-y. How do we deal with these people? And also, what is a booth barnacle?
Okay. So booth barnacles are the people who just kind of stick around like a barnacle. They stick to your booth. They're standing in front of your stuff, and nobody else can see your stuff because they're sitting there. A lot of people are kind of uh, averse to coming up to you and trying to see things if they see somebody else is there because they want to be polite. So that's why it can be a problem, even if somebody has the purest of intentions. They're nice. They're your buddy or whatever. They might actually be your friend in some situations. But maybe they've hit a lull between the panels that they want to go to. They like you. They want to tell you about their D&D character. I've heard it all. So that's one of the things that you do have to kind of have a strategy. I know some people will just say, "Hey, I have to go get some coffee, or I have to go to the bathroom. It was great talking to you." Sort of those conversation closers, if you can. Or what I like to do, and this is a sneaky sales trick too. Um, get super obsessed with cosplayers. Time you see a cosplayer walking by, even if you remotely recognize them, interrupt the conversation with whatever they're saying by saying, "Oh my gosh, it's Batman. Oh my gosh, can I please have a picture of with Batman?" And like just like whatever you can do to interrupt the conversation. And the way this works as a sales trick too is because Batman has to get close enough to your table and stop long
Mhm.
enough to take a picture of Batman. If you've got Batman related merchandise in there, they might see it. This has worked for me several times with like Undertale cosplayers or whatever, just that they're coming to the booth and they're like, "Oh my gosh, it's me. You have me on your table." And so and they'll buy from you. Especially if they're traveling in a group, then like the person who stops has to pose, but everybody else is standing there bored and they might be looking at your table too. So sneaky trick. But that's another way you can kind of interrupt conversations with people who don't want to stop having a conversation with you well past their time. Um, don't ever be mean about it. Don't ever try to like say, "Hey, go away," unless it's really necessary. And if people are being very nasty or very pushy, definitely talk to the convention staff
Yeah.
because there's some dangerous people out there. You do have to watch yourself, and you do want to make sure that they're not threatening other people
Hmm.
or being weird at anybody else. So that's what the volunteers are for. Um, Absolutely, if anyone is soliciting or trying to uh, give you something or sell their own things, and it's against the convention rules because they don't have a table there,
Yeah.
the convention might kick them out. So yeah, just communicate with the staff. That's what they're there for. If things are really hairy.
One thing I've always wondered how other people deal with is what do you do with other like table goers pretty much yelling their sales pitch and stealing away all your customers?
Oh gosh.
I
Yep.
find that what tends to happen when people are yelling their pitches is not so much that they steal your customers, as in they take them away, as that they chase away
They
all the
do.
customers.
Yeah,
Like
they do scare them
you'll see
They
away.
people
do.
turning in a wide arc to like get as far away as they
Yes.
can and like deliberately not look in your direction because they're like, oh, I don't want to make eye contact with the
Hmm.
yelling person.
I have a trick for this too. Okay, so you make a sign. And this is specifically because I have a comic at my table. This might not work if you don't have a comic, but I have a sign that says "Check out my comic." And I stole this idea from somebody at MomoCon, and it worked so well for him. Like, so it's visual. You don't have to try to shout over them, but you're indicating that, hey, you're welcome to talk to me
Hmm.
instead. And that's a way to kind of get people to interact with you. But yeah, they do kind of chase people away with the hard sell, and I don't know that I've ever tried to like talk somebody out of that.
Does it even
It seems
ever work?
No.
no.
No. I've definitely run into like being beside people who like really shout or like aggressively engage with potential customers, and it never works out. It never works out. No matter how charming you are, it's just, there's a lot of people there. You're kind of waddling around like penguins, we got sights to see, and it's just, a little bit of con etiquette just to kind of respect the spaces, and everybody else is here to sell too. So to kind of yell in a room like that is just, I don't know. I don't look upon it nicely when I'm an attendee. When I walk around, I do the same thing that everybody else here does. I give them a wide berth and I avoid that table. Okay, so kind of with that, we've dealt with our people and seen what booth barnacles can be and are. I do want to ask. There's this kind of specific other phrase, the con flu / con crud. How do you avoid that? So this is like kind of getting sick after conventions, dealing with like I mean, different people passing by and stuff. What advice do you have for that, Thane?
Oh boy, this is a question that has definitely gotten significantly more urgent in this year of 2022. Personally, I don't think I will attend a convention without an N95 mask for at least the next couple of years. That's a new thing, obviously. My advice for if you'd asked me 3 years ago, how do you avoid the con crud, I would have just been like, yeah, wash your hands, like bring hand sanitizer, like behind the table, and like if you feel sick, stay home.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's all of that and like definitely wear a mask and like do your best to kind of keep distance, like avoid the crowded elevators and stuff like that. Uh Yeah, mostly just keep hand sanitizer on hand. Just one of those little bottles will usually do the trick. And use it in between every transaction, like especially if you're handling paper or like cash money.
Yes. Yeah. And I noticed like in the now times, it's becoming less frequent that people are using cash as well. So that might change for the future. But something always to consider is keeping that hand sanitizer on you so that you don't get sick. Um, Also, with getting sick, we also know that food can kind of relate to that. How do you avoid, getting into a new place, you're tabling, and you want the good options for food and staying safe and healthy that way. So do you have any advice on that, Ray?
Okay, so my partner is a celiac, so they can't have any gluten or they get sick. So I actually use an app to show me the nearby food places that have options, um, which clearly not everything will have that, but it's always good to research what is around you, what is within walking distance of a convention as well, and just be aware of your options. And I would also say bring lots of water and snacks because especially if you're alone at a convention, you're not always going to be able to go and get hot food.
And locate that bathroom
Oh,
beforehand.
yeah. But yeah, you do want to just remain well hydrated and well fed, especially since shifts in the convention are so long for us artists.
They are. They are. They can easily go from 9 to 12 hour days. So definitely be as comfortable as you can. Sometimes people bring slippers, which I respect, and little blankets. So get as comfortable and be as attentive as you can for the options that the convention can give you in the surrounding areas as well.
Oh man, that reminds me. There are some cons that are 24 hours, and I have
Oh,
had friends that literally bring sleeping bags and sleep under their tables.
oh my gosh.
You mean the
Never.
artist alley is 24
Yeah,
hours? That's
yeah.
terrifying.
Well, it's usually where there's a lot of drinking and a lot of people wandering around while drunk, and apparently drunk people like to spend a lot of money.
I don't think I
So,
could
I mean,
do
there's
that.
advantages to that, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh, all different shapes and sizes. So we've completed the con. We are currently in our sleeping bag in the hotel room, or we're on our way home. What do we do with the leftovers and all the merch that we have? After that, what's going on? What do we do, Delphi? Tell me.
Well, I'm not in a sleeping bag, I'll tell you that. I'm in a nice Airbnb like bed or something like that. But yeah, so you're gonna have stuff after the convention. It's normal. It's totally normal. You shouldn't expect to sell out of every single thing that you have. And hopefully you have a next convention on your calendar to bring it to. A and even if something hasn't sold, I think you should try it again because there's always different crowds, there's always different ways of organizing your booth, so it might, attract more attention in a certain way, in a certain light. I've had lighting issues, man. Like I'll be in some kind of venue and the lighting was really bad and nobody could see a certain thing and it didn't
Oh
sell. But then
no.
like I go someplace else and it's fine. So you just never know. You should always
Hmm.
give things a couple different chances before you decide, no, this is never going to work at a convention. But there are things that I do find just they're not working out the way I hoped they would. I have this one print that's like mermaids playing D&D and I've loved it for so long. I thought, "Oh my gosh, this is so clever. It touches on all the D&D stuff that's on my table. People are totally going to buy this." And they don't. And I'm just like, "No, why
Oh.
don't people love it?" I just generally have that problem with prints, I think. I don't have quite enough of them to make a full looking table. So that's that's a bummer, but it also happens. You can just try things, and maybe incorporate them into your Patreon rewards. One time I did a thing for my patrons that was Sticktember, and they could pick any sticker from my um, from my collection from my convention supply. So they got something out of it. It was just for that 1 month. They got a cool little thing, and I got rid of some of the stock that I had after the summer convention season. So that's one thing to think about.
Yeah, what I'll do with merch that's just not moving is I will just put it all in a nice looking bag, usually according to theme, and just sell them as grab bags. Especially
Oh.
prints, because prints usually don't cost much, so I'm also not taking that much of a loss when I just bundle them all together and sell them as like a mystery bag. And some people just love like being surprised, especially if they like maybe generally your table but don't know particularly what they want. So they'll just get a grab bag and be surprised by it.
I like that. I like that you do it thematically too.
Oh yeah, because I, especially since I have a lot of like gay prints and not everyone is into that, or I'll have a lot of dragon prints, so it's like I'll just bundle them together. And I also do this when I decide to switch printers and just keep it consistent for the type of paper that I use.
I really just need to like learn and listen and absorb all of this, because this question is like what I struggle with the most. I definitely like my online store is like so bare bones because I have a lot of prints that I bring to conventions, and the thought of like digitizing them and listing them all in a store is extremely daunting, so I just never get around to doing it. And then it's like, oh, my online store won't move. And it's like, well, I haven't really made it. So
Well, I don't even know if prints sell online that much, do they? Because like I think those are one of those things that like sell much much better at shows than they're going to online.
I mean, this also same applies to my stickers and like bookmarks and any other things, because I
Call
do have
out.
those available online. But yeah,
This is really weird because I actually do sell a decent amount of prints, but they're all on my print on demand storefronts
Yes.
and not my actual, like, when I did have an actual online storefront. Those never sold on there, but they actually do sell on like Redbubble, Zazzle, and even DeviantArt.
One thing that we would do with our old prints is that we would have a box called our discount print box. And it's just another fun thing for people to kind of go through and shuffle through and grab some prints on a super discount price, whatever catches their eye.
Oh, see, I actually had a terrible experience with doing a discount box because they would buy the discounted prints and then they wouldn't buy anything else. So I was actually, I think the year I tried that was actually my worst year for
Oh
conventions.
no.
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely pay attention to the what's going in the discount bin and why, I suppose. Ours was definitely dated work. I will definitely say that. Like the stuff in the bin was much different from the stuff on display, for sure. And it was of like obscure fandoms and whatnot. So people are like, oh heck yes, I'm gonna get this random Team Fortress print. Hell yeah.
I think part of my problem is that my really old stuff, because I still have prints from the first convention I ever attended
Oh
when
my
I was
god.
like barely out of high school,
Same.
and it is too bad and too obscure for anybody to really want it. So whenever I think about making like grab bags or setting it out, I'm just like, oh no, I
I
probably
want
should
it.
just burn these
No! Send them to
or
me.
send them all to Crispy.
Yes.
One other thing that you can do though is trades after the show too,
Yes.
because a lot of times someone will have something at their table that you want, and you'll have something at your table that they want. So prints and stuff, that's a really great way, and that's I got rid of some of my mermaid ones eventually, was just having those out there.
I love trades, but these prints have accompanied me on many a trade journey and nobody has taken them. So it's the end. It's the end of the line.
I want you to send those prints. At least I just need to see them. I'm sure that you and Delphi are going to be going through them and it's going to be fun, but I definitely I need to see them. You don't understand. Oh my gosh. Okay. So now we've done it. We've done it, everyone. We've finished our convention. We have our leftovers. We've done what we wanted with them. We're planning our next convention. Who knows? I do want to ask, though, now that we've kind of gone through all of that, I want to know some stories about conventions, because that's the really, really cool thing about them, is that they're such a social event. And you can get some really wild, fun, cute, sad, intense stories from that. So I kind of just want to go and ask you all, tell me your good, the bad, and the ugly, whatever you can think of for conventions.
Okay, so I'm gonna tell you about the Etch-a-Sketch Man.
Oh gosh.
There was a guy at Palm Springs Comic Con who was like, he had a red bodysuit, like with a belt and a chest piece and a helmet that all had Etch-a-Sketches embedded into them. And so I always love taking pictures of weird cosplayers, and this was no exception. It was kind of a slow show, and he's like, he came up to me and posed for his picture, and he's like, "Do you want me to draw you?" And
Okay.
I'm like, "Oh, heck yes." And so he sat there with this little tiny, like, business card sized Etch a Sketch, and he drew my picture while he was standing there. It was like the one time I was like so excited to have a booth barnacle, because like he was sitting there and he did a pretty good job. I gotta show you guys, but yeah, apparently this guy like actually goes to parties. He has like a business card and stuff for like local kids and stuff. And you just never know who you're gonna meet. I love cosplayers of all types. And a lot of times I'll pull over cosplayers that are doing podcast shows. Like when Adventure Zone was very, very popular, I would um I would take a picture of every taco that I saw, and I was trying to play tic tac taco, where I would make like an Instagram grid of 9 tacos from the
Oh my
show,
gosh.
and I could like actually get like 2 grids of tacos at a very popular show at one point in
Wow.
time. So that was fun. Like, just like, I always love to look for ways to keep myself entertained. There's so many cool people and so many interesting things. There's weird people too, but I just think it's the kinds of people that you meet. You're never gonna see this anywhere else. It's so
It's
much
true.
fun.
It's 100% true.
Okay, so let me see. Probably one of my favorite convention stories is when there was this guy cosplaying as Bob Ross, and his car actually broke down on the way to the convention, and it was during a blizzard because this was OhioCon, so it's in the middle of winter. Um, so the convention staff actually let him set up shop in the artist alley, and he was painting like little like watercolors to raise money for to fix his car.
Oh my
Oh my
gosh.
And he
gosh.
I mean, he wasn't actually an artist, but he did raise enough money to get his car fixed.
Oh my god.
Good
Well,
on him.
yeah, way to go, Bob Ross.
How
I
do you not
know.
give Bob Ross money though?
Exactly. But that was really sweet, and it just goes to show that a lot of cons are like really chill with that kind of thing, as long as you check with them first, please,
Yes.
because if he hadn't, he probably would have just been kicked out. Now, I have to think of a horror story. Oh, I think I have one. That was when I decided to do this outdoor convention that was in my area, and I had the brilliant idea to save money on a hotel room because the
Oh gosh.
lodge like rooms were super expensive. And I decided, you know what? It's in a national park. Let's go camping.
Oh no.
Oh my gosh.
Camping during the
There
Camping
was
con.
with the
there was
convention.
there was a storm that broke our tent.
No. Oh God.
Wow.
Oh yikes.
I shouldn't be laughing, but oh my gosh.
Luckily, since I had just bought the tent, I got my money back, but still that was not fun.
That
And
dampens the mood.
and add to that not only did they cancel the live action Mario Kart,
Oh my gosh.
but I also had the worst booth barnacle I have ever had at that convention.
It's
Oh
just
no.
constantly slamming you one thing after another.
It's like it would have been a really nice chill con if it hadn't been for all of that. But
Yeah.
because it sounded cool. Live action Mario Kart. They had a Slender Man escape thing going on during the night that also got canceled because of the weather, and yeah, but they did also have a Pokemon scavenger hunt, and they never found the Sylveon that was at my table, so I managed to keep it.
Aw.
I was having a hard time thinking of stories up until the two things actually. I have two stories all in one go. The mention of the storm reminded me because my own personal I mean it's not the only like negative con experience that I've had. I've been to a lot of conventions. But one that kind of stands out in my memory. It was also a very tiny local show held in a historic hotel downtown.
Oh.
And it seemed great because it was very close to me. I was like, I can walk to this show. And it had a very cheap table. And it was a show that was not once a year, it was every 3 months. Like they would hold this every quarter. And I was like, ooh, it could be interesting to like regularly go to this show. And a friend of mine had been to it and had a good time. So I was like, all right, I'll check this little thing out. And I went to it. And when I got my table, I was assigned to a little room off to the side, which when I arrived turned out to be the bar.
Oh.
The main, so because it was such a small space with multiple rooms, you could be assigned to a room with a stage that was kind of big and it had a nice high ceiling and big windows and really nice lighting. And it kind of felt like a proper con space with enough room for a whole bunch of tables to be kind of arranged. And I was hoping that I would be in there. I was not. I was in this tiny little space, literally with a bar. I was seated on a bar stool facing the back of the room. So I was like, this is not ideal. Can I at least turn around? And at first the con was like, no, you have this assigned table spot. But then the person behind me never showed up. So I just kind of rotated my display so that I was at least facing the door. Actually, I should have thought of this story earlier because the mention of lighting, having to bring lighting, this space was lit like a bar. So it had very, very dim lights. And I realized when I got there, because I didn't know what to expect, but at least a couple of other people did, and they had brought their own lamps to set up on the tables to shine light on their stuff so that the customers could actually see what they were selling.
Yeah, just like that's the rookie mistake. Like if they offer different spaces for different prices, there's a reason for that. There's so many. Like just be careful when a convention offers that because they'll put you on like a second floor or they'll put you on the outside tables and it'll be cheaper and you'll think, "Oh, great." But like well, a lot of times they don't direct people to those spaces the same way they do to the main floor and you don't get any kind of sales and it's dead.
So, funny story, this show did not offer different seating for different amounts of pricing. It was just you submitted and they would tell you where you were going to sit after your application was in and you had no choice in the matter. So, after that experience, I was like, okay, well, this was kind of a bust. I did actually make back like I made more than what I had spent going there, but because that amount was like the $30 for the table, it's like, okay, not a ton of stuff. I was like, all right, it's fine. I just won't go to this one. But then 3 months later, the friend who had kind of introduced me to it, like, went to it again because they'd been in the big, nice room. And I wandered by just to kind of see, oh, I wonder how things are going. Like, it's, just to check in. It was, I think, either free or very cheap admission. So it's like, I'll just wander in and see what's going on. And I was looking around in that room. I was like, it is kind of nice. What if I did apply again? Maybe I'd get
Oh my
maybe I'd
gosh.
get placed here this time and it would be nice. So me, the fool,
Oh
I did
no,
actually
you
apply
did.
again 3 months later. I was like, if they put me in that bar, maybe they won't. Maybe they won't. Maybe if they do, I'll just bail and I don't have to go. So I applied again. I waited. A couple months went by. They sent out the emails with like, okay, here's where you're placed. And I was in the bar again. And I was like, oh, okay, so this isn't ideal. But I was thinking about it. I was like, well, I have no other plans that weekend. So maybe I might as well just go. I'll just do it again and see what happens. About approximately like 3 days before the show, I got another email saying, whoops, we accidentally double booked the bar with another group and we're getting kicked out of that space. So everybody who was assigned to the bar is actually going to be on the second floor. It's fine. It's totally fine.
Oh my
So
gosh.
when I got there, instead of being in the dingy bar, at first I was like, maybe this could be kind of nice because the second floor turned out to be this big, airy space with like windows. There was a photography exhibit in it. So there were like pictures on the walls, but they just set up the tables kind of in between. So I got there, I plunked my books out and everything, and I'm just kind of sitting and chilling and chilling and chilling and chilling. The con did not put any kind of sign to direct people or
They
even let people know
don't.
that there was stuff upstairs. So I think I saw 5 people total that entire day, and 4 of them were there for the photographs. They would walk all the way around the table, avoiding eye contact, and then they would get in like a foot away from the photo on the wall, and they would be like leaning up to it to investigate,
No.
looking real close,
No.
looking at it. They'd walk around the next table and to the next photo. Oh,
Oh.
it was so awkward.
Oh my god.
So after that, I was like, okay, I'm never going back. But the con made that decision for me because they folded after that, and now they aren't around anymore.
Well,
Good.
Ripperoni. You're so optimistic in that situation.
I know. I'm like, well, it's really on me for going back in the first place.
Oh
I
my
should have known.
God. You're like, how is this
Um,
worse than the bar? It
I
did.
know. Somehow it was.
I was just gonna say that Emerald City used to have that problem because they had like they have a sky bridge and there's like one half of the Artist Alley is on like one half of the sky bridge and then the other was on the other. And so you never knew if you were going to be put on the
Mm,
bad side or the good side, and people would have drastically different experiences. Some people will be like, "Oh, Emerald City, it's my best show ever." And, "Oh, Emerald City, it was the worst. Nobody ever came by my table."
yeah.
So like look at your venue and really talk to people who've been to that venue and figure out where they put people, because a lot of conventions who are super small and indie, like Thane's were, yeah, they don't really have a lot of control. They're trying to cut costs. They go in weird spaces, and it's usually not a good time, except for those situations where you want to slow con to check out other people's work. Then it's great because everyone's looking at the photos and not you.
Yeah, signage is very, very important. I'm just gonna keep forever remembering the bar now. The bar was already so low. Oh gosh.
The bar is in the ground now.
Yeah.
I think
Uh,
for positive con stories, most of the ones that I have kind of traveled to, even though it does mean that I'm kind of putting in more, I those stick the most in my memory because I love walking around like a different place and eating, like trying out their food scene, like around the convention and kind of meeting all the different people that are there. But for my nice story, there is one semi-local con that I will name. It's called YetiCon, and it has a special place in my heart because it is held in the like ski village of a hill in southern Ontario. And we don't really have a lot of big mountains here. So the ski village is kind of more of a draw than the hill itself. And it's held in the summertime. So the main appeal is that they have a water park and zip lines and like this funky little roller coaster thing that you can go on.
Oh, that's cool.
And if you are in the convention as an attendee or as an exhibitor, you have free access to all these funky things, so you can go ziplining in the morning before you like go to your table and stuff like that. The con itself is like it's fairly small, like sales wise, but I feel like the amenities more than make up for it. It's just kind of a great place to hang out.
Yeah, the experience sounds definitely worth it. Definitely want to go one day, but gonna let the world get back to some kind of state first.
It's
Oh
tricky.
gosh. Yes. Cons have definitely changed over the years, and it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of adapt and whatnot. I did want to share one little tiny happy story. One of my favorite stories being at TCAF myself is that, we were sitting on the third floor of TCAF, which I actually really enjoyed. We applied for it before the panini to go on the third floor again because I just love the space, and a lot of people who were coming up were just saying it was a nice break. Anyway, we had one of our longtime readers come up to find our table and actually give us a gift that they had drawn of our comic with our main character on it, saying thank you for all the hard work creating something I love. And I remember absolutely crying at that moment, like a big sappy person. The piece that they have made is currently framed, and it sits at our desk at our computer where we make Ghost Junk Sickness, and I look at it all the time, get super emotional, and it's just moments like that I'm just like, this is really why I make the comic. And to have those moments and to know that the work that we do is reaching people and really sticking with them in ways that I never thought was possible. So conventions are an amazing way to kind of connect to people that way and to have just such an experience. So I really, really encourage people to kind of try them out, see how they work for you if you're really curious, and hopefully everything that we've said in this episode and the episode previous will kind of, encourage you to kind of, try them out and dip your toe in the convention waters that help sell our comics and talk about comics. And with that, I do want to say, I feel like this is a chicken salad Caesar wrap with a little bit of crunchy bits in it, like I guess croutons or something. I have been your host, Crispy, and you can find my work at ghostjunksickness.com.
And I have been Delphina. You can find my webcomic Sombulus at sombulus.com.
And I'm Ray, and you can find my comic at empyreancomic.com, and Overlord of Ravenfell is on Webtoon.
And I'm Verathane, and you can find my comics at chiralt.sevensmith.net or at witchwoodcomic.com.
I want to have some con experiences with you all. Have some stories together.
Let's meet at the chocolate fountain at...
Thanks for listening to Screen Tones. Subscribe to us on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts to be notified of new episodes. And be sure to follow us on Twitter at ScreenTonesCast.